Oh,
We're live. We are live. Hello.
aloha, everybody. Aloha.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yep.
Um, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing a
Yep.
mask.
Yep.
Thank you. Hold on while let me. Oh, I forgot to do something, Charlie. Hang on real quick.
Okay.
I gotta share this thing. I need to share this thing real quick. Bear with me, people. We do this every single night. And here we go. Start.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this mask tonight. Is because I someone posted and apologized that they couldn't come watch tonight because there's the masked singer on TV. So I was kind of figuring, well, we can be masked singers too, Charlie. We can do that.
Yeah. I get my mask. I get my mask on right here.
All right. Well, anyway, they can watch it later. Now I gotta make my hair nice. Anyway, thank you guys
Yeah.
all for joining us. Again, Mel Raposo, Charlie Iona, and tonight we have a very special guest, as we always try to get on for you guys. As we try to inform and educate, that's what this is all about. So tonight we have our prosecuting attorney, Justin Kollar. He'll be coming on. In fact, he is ringing the doorbell, so I'm going to bring him on real quick. And he will be popping on the screen any moment now. Oh, he disappeared. He should be coming on. There he is. Oh, look at him. Look at him cleaning his room.
Hello.
I think we caught him off guard. How are you, sir? Oh, let me see. I got to unmute you, I think.
Yep.
No, he's unmuted. He is unmuted.
Gentlemen,
There you go.
can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear both of you.
First of all, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're a very busy guy. I know we got a lot of stuff going on Kauai right now. I just wanted to really touch bases and we'll turn it over in a little bit. But today, not much good news
Nope.
in the state. Corona or COVID outbreak on Maui, 15 healthcare workers in the hospital.
Yeah, that one's bad.
Disturbing. And we talked about this last night with the lieutenant governor. Everything seemed so promising, but there was always that warning that this could happen, and it happened today. And unfortunately, I don't think this is the last we'll see. So prayers go out to all of those people on Maui and throughout the whole state. And we had a sixth death. Condolences and prayers to those families as well as the late Senator Noy's wife passed away as well. Not a good day.
Nope.
Some positives, I think, that not everyone agrees, but the mayor today announced an amendment to his rule that effective the 10th at 11:59 p.m., TVRs and homestays, the B&Bs, bread and breakfasts, all will be illegal or will not be allowed. And as well as the golf courses, private and public golf courses will now be closed effective the 10th, actually the 11th, really. So anyway, that's just kind of the highlights of today. Again, bittersweet, a little bit of good news and a bunch of bad news. But anyway, with that, I want to introduce our county prosecutor, Justin Kollar. Thank you again for sharing this evening with us tonight. A lot of questions about what's going on as far as penalties and enforcement and all of that stuff. So with that, Charlie, you got anything before we turn it over?
No. Welcome, Justin. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.
I think I want to start off by saying before you go into your segment there that for those of you that are watching out there on Facebook Live, I think it's very important to understand that there's a correlation between the law enforcement and the prosecutor's office, especially at a time like this on the enforcement portion of when somebody violates an order. And so I think it'll be very, very interesting that you folks get it firsthand with the top official who will be in a position to prosecute and what triggers that domino effect to get through that adjudication process. So I want you to listen in and take notes. And with that said, thank you again, Justin. It's all yours.
Real quick,
Yeah, thank you, Charlie.
Go
Justin,
ahead. Real quick.
Yeah.
People are asking if you can see the comments. Justin cannot see the comments, but I have my original iPad right here, my iPad, and I will be taking down your questions and asking. And also, before we kick in, everybody, we got 143 people on live right now. Please share this so that everybody can see this. Share it right now. Take the time, push the little share button, start a watch party, do whatever you want. Share it so we can get the word out. This is going to be some important information. I receive hundreds and hundreds, and Charlie does too, of comments and questions throughout the day. So this is your opportunity. We got the man here. So with that, Mr. Kollar, take it away.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Charlie. And thanks to both of you for all that you're doing right now to help keep people informed, keep our local community up to speed on what's happening with the COVID situation here on Kauai. Mel, as you mentioned, right now we are working just hand in hand with Chief Raybuck and his management team at KPD, making sure that we're in constant communication and on the same page. Also with our mayor, Derek is doing a really great job right now, I think, reassuring the community and taking just smart, proactive steps to help make sure we don't see some of the situations that other places on the mainland and around the world are unfortunately seeing right now with regards to this outbreak. The best modeling right now shows that the peak day for the most deaths that we're likely to see in a day is later on this month, around the 17th, around 10 days from now. And after that, things may start getting better. There will still be, unfortunately, deaths and cases happening, but we will maybe start to see that curve come around the other side. And that'll be a very positive step for the community. But the reality is we are in this for the long haul. Even if things settle down for the summer, we're likely to see another spike later this year, 12 to 18 months till a vaccine hits. And, for life to get back to normal, we're really gonna have to ramp up our ability to test people. That's the biggest problem right now. So, on the law enforcement side, I am so grateful to everyone in this community for staying home and for just not doing dumb stuff, generally speaking. There's still way too many cars on the road. There's still way too many people driving around to Costco, Safeway, Foodland on a daily basis, looking to see if they got that toilet paper in yet. But, people are listening. So I do see fewer cars on the road. The checkpoints are helping. I'm grateful to the National Guard for stepping up and helping out. I think, what we'll see is that Kauai really took aggressive action at the outset, and that is going to help benefit this community in the long run. So, and everybody's a part of that. So that's a great thing to see. In law enforcement, we've seen, it's a misdemeanor to violate the mayor's emergency rules, meaning, the curfew or the stay-at-home order in general. That's up to a year in jail or a $5,000 fine. And, I know they've issued several dozen citations, mostly related to the curfew violations, a few related to the stay-at-home order. I just saw DLNR's press release today showing that they've issued about a dozen citations here on Kauai. And I just got some more folks who were foolish enough to post pictures of their adventure to Sugi Grove today on their social media. So we might be seeing those come out a little bit later. And, I'm just grateful to law enforcement for stepping up. Now, the courts are basically closed for anything but emergency matters right now. So, domestic violence offenders, DUI offenders, sex offenders, we're still moving those cases. We're still, having those hearings. We're still going to court. We're working on the ability to teleconference from the jail so we don't have to physically move people back and forth. So, the courts are meeting this situation as well, and they're working with us. I'm really thankful to Chief Justice Rechtenwald for having the foresight, and Chief Judge Valenciano on Island for having the foresight to be able to be responsive to these things. Most of my staff, my attorneys, have been on work from home for about 4 weeks now, since we really, I think it was the night that the NBA season got suspended. I said, oh my goodness, this is pretty serious. So, fortunately our attorneys all have full connectivity from remote locations. So they're not needing to come into the office unless they've really got court hearings. You guys, Mel, we've just got a skeleton crew that's actually physically present in the office to handle the custody cases from KPD. But, so far, all the cylinders of the county's response to this have been, pulling on all cylinders. I know one big question that's out there is all this talk about the release of inmates to ease congestion at the jail. So I'm not even going to wait for that question. I'm just going to talk about that one right now, because that's a huge concern right now. The hot spot for the entire United States right now is the Cook County Jail in Chicago. Hundreds and hundreds of cases coming out of there. And that's not just inside the jail, that's cases that are being spread into the community through the staff, through the COs and the medical staff there. That's really what we're trying to avoid here in Hawaii. Now, we are very fortunate here on Kauai, and I'll tell you why. I really want to reassure people that you are not going to be seeing any mass releases of inmates from the Kauai Community Correctional Center. From the outset, when we saw this potential situation coming, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we started talking to the staff there. We said, what do you need to be able to maintain safety for your staff so you're not taking this virus home to your families and then spreading it in the community? I mean, forget for a minute that KCCC is a jail. Try to think of another place on this island right now where you have so many people getting together, coming in and out of the facility on a daily basis in those conditions, congregating around one another. If you saw that happening at the golf course or someplace else, you'd put a stop to that. So what we've got to do is figure out, okay, how do we do that while also protecting the community? Meaning we're not going to be letting people out of there who are DV offenders or sex assault defendants or murderers or people who have committed violent crimes or real serious drug offenses, anything like that. So we were able to really, again, it's a benefit of us being a smaller community right here, in that we were able to start talking about this weeks ago with the judges, with the staff at the jail, with the public defenders, with the police, with everybody has been at the table and been a part of this conversation. And thanks to those conversations, we were able to do more of doing a slower pressure release on the pot than just pulling the lid off and having stuff go everywhere. And thanks to that, we've created a situation now where crime is very low on Kauai right now. And we've been able to get the head count at the jail to a point where they can clear out enough of a module there and dedicate a shower, because they've only got 4 working showers on the inside right now. They've been able to clear it out enough so that if they have to isolate people, they can isolate them there. So we are not going to have to see any mass releases from Kauai. We are the only correctional center in the state that is operating under its designed capacity. And it's real close, within like 2 or 3 of its designed capacity, but it's there to a level where they can maintain the separation for the protection of the staff and their families. And that to me was, that's another benefit of the partnerships we're able to form here. They've got much bigger problems on Oahu, on Maui, and the Big Island. Their correctional centers are all way beyond capacity. And right now we've got a situation where the public defenders filed some litigation in our Hawaii Supreme Court, basically asking for an emergency order releasing a lot of these people. And, the prosecutors, of course, all of us are united in advocating for a more measured response to that. Now, what the Hawaii Supreme Court did was they appointed a retired judge from the Court of Appeals. His name's Dan Foley. I know Dan Foley very well. I clerked for him in Honolulu from 2006 to 2008. He's a mentor of mine. And we've been able to have some very candid conversations about this subject. And I feel confident that whatever recommendations he ultimately makes to the Hawaii Supreme Court will not affect us here on Kauai in any significant or measurable level. But again, they're in situations on some of the other neighbor islands where, Charlie, you're familiar with MCCC, and that is a facility that is not in good shape. We've got ACOs who don't feel safe coming to the jails right now, medical staff who are scared witless that a case is going to start coming up in their jails. And so I'm just grateful, again, we've been able to address that situation on Kauai already so that we are not going to see anything drastic happen over here. So I don't know if there were any other questions based off of that topic, but that's really the main thing that I wanted to communicate to the community tonight, is that please don't worry that you're going to be seeing all these bad guys out there swarming our streets while we're all locked up at home, because that's not the case.
You unmute, Mel. You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, the reason I mute myself is this system is voice activated. So if I make noise through my paper, it'll switch the camera view. But anyway, I apologize. One question relating to that. What is the criteria or your criteria for the release of prisoners? I think you made it very clear that we're not going to see this mass release like the other islands are. But when a petition, I guess, from the public defender comes up, what is the criteria as far as you're concerned to allow one of these people out early?
Well, when this situation first arose, we were very blunt with them. We said, listen, we're willing to work with you, but it's going to be no domestic violence offenders. It's going to be no sex assault offenders, no violent felons, nobody who's been accused of DUI or any offense, negligent injury, negligent homicide, drunk driving related, and nothing related to drug distribution or dealing in the community. We're looking at a couple different categories right now. One category that we are not looking at is sentenced felons who are serving open prison sentences. They are not being considered by us or the public defenders for any early release or anything like that. The Hawaii Paroling Authority has control over those folks, and I don't know what they may be looking at, but here on Kauai, we are looking at primarily two categories of offender. And that's one is people who have been convicted of misdemeanors or petty misdemeanors and are serving short jail terms as their sentences and who have already served a portion of their sentence. So if somebody was sentenced to serve 3 months and they've already served 2 months, do we look at putting them out of the facility on supervised release with conditions, and then later when it's safe to do so, they can come back in and serve the rest of their sentence? The other category is people who are sentenced felons who may be serving a jail term as part of their condition of probation. So these are people that the judge has already decided are going to be back in the community and they are safe to be back in the community. And maybe they're sentenced to serve 3 months of jail as a term of their probation, or 6 months. And it's again, who's close to the end of that sentence? Who are the people who have shown that they're behaving inside the facility, who don't have a record of violence, who don't have a record of domestic violence? And then are they people we believe will adhere to those conditions? And so we get the input from the folks at the jail. We get the input from the people who are the probation officers from the intake service center. We make sure they have a verified address, a residence that they can go to, and a place to stay so that they're not going to be out on the streets potentially committing more crimes. There's a very thorough process in place for looking at those cases. And again, this is not a get out of jail free card, because these are people who were sentenced to serve terms of incarceration for good reasons. But the question is, can they be safely housed in the community until it's safer to put them back in the jail? Oh, and one more category that we're looking at that was kind of a bigger one is folks who are being held pre-trial, but were unable to come up with the money to post bail, because our cash bail system, sometimes it's great for keeping really dangerous people inside, but sometimes it also catches people inside who may not be dangerous, but just couldn't come up with the money to post a bail. So those people go through a risk assessment process. Again, Intake Service Center works with them, and everybody's got to sign off on it. I mean, the judge, Intake Service Center, whoever the prosecutor is on the case, and it's not just me looking at a piece of paper, it's the prosecutor who actually knows the case and knows the facts and can speak to the victims and make sure everybody understands what's going on. So we're really doing our best to make sure that whole process is honored, so we don't have to have what is going to happen on Oahu or Maui or the Big Island happen here in our community.
Justin,
Yes.
question. So if we're at a stage now where we're looking at release of inmates, and it sounds as if, is it leaning toward we're releasing inmates because of overpopulation, or we're releasing inmates because of this virus that we have in here?
The issue is not necessarily the overpopulation. The issue is, what do the medical staff at the jails and what do the people who work there, what are they telling us about what they need to be able to maintain a safe working environment in their facilities? That's what we're looking at here. And again, our situation here is much better than it is on the other islands. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm glad that we've addressed this situation already.
So would it be fair to say that if a system was devised, and this is just it's a throw out to you, Justin, but because we're under the threshold by just a slight tad as compared to the rest of the system, would it be something that would be considered that until such time, that 1-for-1 exchange, you got a prisoner coming in, then you let a prisoner out, would something like that work?
And that's exactly right. And so right now, I mean, we're just looking at everything on a strict case-by-case basis. And now that we're at a level where they're telling us it's safe, we can kind of pump the brakes a little bit and say, okay, we're at a safe level. So unless you've got a really great reason, like there's a medical concern or something like that, we can have more control over that process, because we don't have to really push to get anybody more out.
Yeah, and one last thing, the individuals that you are letting out, and it's a twofold question. One is there a way to get them tracked, such as, ankle bracelets when they get released? That's one. The second would be, are these inmates being tested before they go out, or are they assumed free of the virus at the point when they're being released? I mean, is there any structures in place to?
Yeah, the testing capacity, unfortunately, is just not there. And to test the prisoners isn't necessarily going to be effective unless we're also testing the staff there on a regular basis. And right now, with a 7 to 10 to 14-day lag in the test results, it's a process that's not feasible. And that's why we need to radically ramp up the testing capacity, not just on Kauai, but everywhere. Life in this country is not going to get back to normal until we can do that testing, until we know who's got antibodies, until we know who's infected and who's not infected. Because, we could have an ACO or an inmate who's walking around in there for 2 weeks without showing any symptoms, and the whole time they're spreading that virus. So just doing, screenings for fevers or don't come to work if you're coughing, that's fine, that's appropriate, but it's not going to stop somebody from bringing the infection into the facility or out of the facility. And that's why, that's kind of why this issue is so urgent, because once you start to see cases in the facility, then the game is basically over. If you start to see cases inside the facility, and that goes for any one of our 4 facilities, you are going to start seeing community spread as a result of that. So, this needs to be accomplished before we start to see that, because otherwise, too late already.
So Justin, as far as you know, or as far as the state knows, there is no reported cases in any of the facilities throughout the state. Is that correct?
That is correct. I know they had a scare on one of the other islands a couple days ago. I believe that inmate did test negative. We have no reason to suspect there were any cases active or otherwise in our facility here today. The problem is we don't really know until 2 weeks from today if we have any cases in there today. So that's kind of the situation we're dealing with.
Okay, and I'm just going over these. We had a bunch of questions. How many have been released so far? Do you have a number of how many inmates have been released since the COVID because of the request for them to be released?
Over the past 45 to 60 days, I would say the facility at the jail has, the population at the jail has gone from about 140 down to about 110. So the operating capacity of the jail is 128. The design capacity of the jail, which is the ideal number, is 110. And we've been able to get it just kind of at that point where it's fluctuating between 108, 109, 110.
So about 30 have been released since the project or whatever started.
Yeah, and some of those might be folks who just completed their sentence and were released or were able to move for supervised release on some other grounds. These aren't 30 people who are out there released specifically because, oh, it's COVID and we need to get 30 people out of here. So it can be a combination of factors. There's inmates coming in and out of the jail on more or less a daily basis. And also, you know, since this has been happening, and because courts are not hearing anything except emergency cases right now, there's been a decrease in arrests by the Kauai Police Department. More people are being issued citations in lieu of arrest because the courts aren't going to hear these cases for 6 or 8 weeks anyway. So the police officer has the discretion to issue that person a citation with a court date in the future, rather than making a custodial arrest and increasing the physical interaction in the cell blocks and in the court buildings, you know, just with the sheriffs and the booking officers and the cell block workers and all those folks. So, you know, it's part of the concerted effort to keep all of our men and women in blue protected as well.
Justin.
And so if you see fewer people coming in on custody arrests, you'll see fewer people going out to the jail as well. So that's also contributed to the decrease.
Okay, Justin, a question regarding the release. We know that the plans that have been put in place, not so much for the prison systems, but with regards to mandatory quarantine, right? To act as a deterrent, hopefully acts as a deterrent to stop the visitors from coming here. Okay. Would it be safe to say that, first of all, I'll need to know from you if we would be violating any of these inmates' rights if upon release, based on this program, if it's announced to the public that they're being released into the public? I mean,
yeah, I would
so
certainly, you know, and we've talked about this issue with the police department, and the folks who have been arrested, you know, straight off the airplanes, who are homeless folks who came here without places to go, you know, irresponsibly for whatever reason, whether they were given a ticket or told this was a safe place to come for some reason. My understanding is all of those individuals were taken straight back to the airport and got on flights out of here. I am not aware of any that have been released back into the community. Now, the folks here who are residents here, who have been arrested for curfew violations or other violations of the stay-at-home order, most of them have been given citations. Some have been arrested, and some of them have posted bail. I think that the police department is doing a really good job at keeping people informed when people are arrested straight off the jet. And, you know, I would certainly encourage them and hope that they would continue to do that, so that if somebody is, you know, if somebody flies here, gets arrested, somehow has the money to post bail, and is back out in the community, I would fear for that person's safety a little bit.
No,
So
I guess I'm
yeah.
looking at the inmate population on early release. If those names would be available to release, so that people, if they said, okay, I hear him, yep, I know a family live in my neighborhood, okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be something to, at least people be aware of it?
I think the best way to get, I know that the jail releases periodically inmate rosters, and I think we don't maintain that roster. We get it every couple of days. I would have no problem if somebody calls me and has questions or concerns about a specific individual with sharing their custody status. And I also want to let people know, if you have questions about somebody's custody status, you can go on Hawaii VineLink. You go to vinelink.com, scroll down to Hawaii, and you can find out if a particular person is in custody or if they're out of custody. So that's the best place to find out if you have questions about a particular individual. I mean, otherwise, the custody rosters are public information, so I wouldn't have a problem sharing those.
I know there was a question about.
Thank you.
Yep.
There was a question about higher bail. Why don't we set a higher bail? We had Senator Kochi on our show several nights ago, and he said that he was going to put in a communication to the Chief Justice, sharing that concern, sharing that concern that in fact to consider raising the bail on these violators so that it would be tougher for them to be released. So we'll wait and see of that.
The COVID violations are misdemeanors, which means that the police department has the full discretion in terms of what bail they set on misdemeanors. So they could set bail at $100. They could set bail at $5,000. And then after the arrest, if the person's held in custody, within 48 hours, they have to send a packet to the judge. And at that point, the judge would have the discretion to set custody. But again, if we're talking at a person who's a local resident, who's, for whatever reason, they're arrested for a curfew violation, and we don't have any reason to believe they're a violent person or that they are a flight risk, there would not be a reason to want to hold them in the jail and take up space in the jail, especially since we're not going to be able to even get them into court for a significant amount of time. So I think that's kind of the rationale that you see with some of the lower bail on some of these cases. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that would be up to the chief and to the police department as far as setting bail in misdemeanor cases, at least at the initial level, before it goes to the judge.
All righty. You anticipate a lot of these requests from the public defenders, and the way it works, let me know if I'm wrong, but public defender will file a petition. Your office would pose your objections if there is an objection, and then this contracted retired judge will make the ultimate decision whether or not they be released. Is that how this thing works?
Judge Foley is not going to be making decisions about specific cases. He is not going to be ordering the release of inmates. He's not going to be submitting a list of people to be released. That is not his kuleana, and he's shared with me that's not going to be what happens. What he is tasked with is making recommendations to the Supreme Court about procedures, about conditions as they currently exist, and about what has been done about it within the system so far. And then he'll make recommendations about processes and about procedures. But this Judge Foley is not going to be submitting a list of inmates and saying release these people, because that's second guessing the judges who sentenced the person, that's second guessing the prosecutors, that's second guessing the whole system. And I think that would really cause a loss of confidence in the system. And, obviously we don't want to see that happen. So I think that his kuleana is just to make to provide a report as far as what's been done, and then make any recommendations he sees as far as general policies or general procedures that they can employ to move this process. And having worked with Dan Foley for 2 years, I know he is a very fair guy. He is very aware of the dynamics of this situation. He takes public safety very seriously. He's not an ideological judge. He's not a partisan. He doesn't have a horse in this race. And so I'm confident he's going to call it fairly and down the middle. And, I have confidence in that. So that's how the special master process is going to work. And over the past couple of weeks, we've been having weekly teleconference calls, actually more than weekly, doing them twice a week, with all the county prosecutors, the Attorney General's office, the Department of Public Safety, the Judiciary, the Public Defender's office. We have all been working very hard to be on the same page here so that we're not forced into a situation where people are having to make rash or decisions that they haven't thought through. So we've got another one scheduled for tomorrow morning. So 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, me and the other 3 county prosecutors, Kevin Takata from the Attorney General's, the Judiciary, Public Safety, we'll all be on the phone again, just doing a status check, seeing where we're at, how things are going, what we've done, and what the next steps would be. So.
Okay, Justin, with this release program, okay, if and when it appears that we're getting to the end of the flattening of the curve, will this program continue or will it stop as far as release is concerned? Because it seems like the release is prompted because we have this pandemic. But if the pandemic gets to a point that it's pretty much getting flattened out as reported by the DOH, is this program that what's being undertaken now for early release, would it continue indefinitely or will it?
No, when this pandemic situation is resolved, then we no longer need to be taking pandemic into account when making these decisions. I mean, this is a temporary situation. Hopefully it's a temporary situation. Hopefully it's a short-term temporary situation, but that all depends on how well we react and address the situation now. If we react and address the situation now with decisive action, the way that I think Kauai has done, then we make it a shorter situation. If we make this into a situation that stretches out 6 or 9 months, which is possible, then it becomes a longer term situation. So, and that's exactly why we have to stop the spread of this virus on this island now. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we get back to normal life, the sooner we get back to regular life.
Now, the individuals that are being released, okay, I guess you go through a full panel of questions and you look into their backgrounds, see, which one is fair to say that they can be released. But, I'm viewing some of the questions here. What about if those who are being released that have no place to go to, or there's no jobs available right now, especially with the climate as it is right now? They're kind of like being put out there in a stagnant situation, and it possibly could breed problems happening again. I mean, who's to say, right?
That's why we're trying to be as thorough as possible and making sure that people do have verified addresses, that they're not just giving us an address, but that person is being contacted to make sure that that person can actually stay there, and that person has a place to stay and will have access to food and resources and things like that. Because the last thing we want is to see more crime in the community. Priority is always protecting the community and keeping the community safe. And second, we don't want to see these offenders get out and then are in a situation where they're committing more crimes. I mean, that would be counterproductive to everything that we're trying to do. So, and I've put everybody on notice. I said, any of these people, they screw up while they're out, we're going to come down on them like a ton of hammers. And that's just the way it's going to be, because if you're coming to me as a defense lawyer, or you're coming to me as a probation officer, or whatever the case is, and saying, yeah, this person is safe to be out, I'm going to hold you to that. And so, you know, if we're going to take a chance and we get burned, there's going to be some consequences for that. And so that's just what we're trying to avoid. And that's why we're trying to go through this really slowly and really thoroughly, and make sure that Kauai is, again, the best situated of the 4 counties to deal with this situation.
Okay, I just got a couple more and then we'll move on, because there's a couple more questions that people have asked. When these prisoners are released, are they subject to quarantine at home, or are they free to be like any other resident on the island? In other words, if they can go to the beach and they can do all of these things.
We have asked that they be subject to 14-day self-quarantine. So that is a condition of the terms of supervision that we have told the public defenders that needs to be included in the orders. And from the orders I've seen, it has been included. And they're also subject to the same stay-at-home orders that the rest of us are exposed to, that the rest of us are subject to. So yes, they are required to self-quarantine, and they are required just as much as the rest of us to stay at home.
Okay, and then there was one, and then we'll move on after this question. Someone asked about the fines. The fines are not collected until after the case is adjudicated in court, correct?
Yeah, when you see that, you know, I had a couple people ask me, oh, how come this guy only got $100 fine or whatever? No, that was the bail that he posted. He still has to go through a court process and could be fined up to $5,000 and or sentenced to serve a year in jail.
And that
but that doesn't happen until the person is, you know, if they go to trial, or if they just come to court and plead no contest or plead guilty, and then they would get sentenced. And that is not going to happen until a couple of months down the line at this point.
All righty. Okay, someone had a question about the martial law. We get a lot of people asking, once the governor said that they were going to activate the National Guard, there was a lot of people that said, here we go, martial law. Can you explain to the people
Sure.
what the difference is and what is martial law?
Martial law is when the military is in the community performing enforcement functions. If you were to see those National Guard soldiers set up a checkpoint where they've got their machine guns and barbed wire across the road, and they're telling you what you can and cannot do, that would be martial law. That is not the situation we're in now. The National Guard has been mobilized to help the police department at the checkpoints, so that we do not have to have every single on-duty officer on the island standing at a checkpoint when we need to have them also patrolling our beaches and patrolling our parks and patrolling our neighborhoods to keep everybody safe. They're there strictly to provide logistical assistance, to provide manpower. And again, these are all Kauai residents from what I've been told. And so, you know, I'm grateful that they're out there doing that and serving. And Mel, I know you served, and I thank you for your service. And Charlie, I know you served as a law enforcement officer, and I thank you for your service, because it's difficult work to stand out there in a checkpoint on a highway in 85-degree weather in those blue nylon wool uniforms. I know you're sweating out there. And so, you know, I'm thankful to them for doing that, but this is not martial law. We are not projected in any way, shape, or form to get to the point where anything like that would be even considered. Even the worst projections do not envision a situation where we are invoking martial law. Yes, there are inconveniences and restrictions placed on movement of traffic and movement of residents, things that are specifically allowed under Section 127A of the Hawaii Revised Statutes during the time of an emergency declared by the governor, that gives the mayors and other county officials authority to restrict people's movements. And that there are specific provisions in the law to make sure that is only temporary and that is only limited, and that the military is not going to be out here patrolling our streets, telling people where they can and cannot go. They're here to provide support and assistance to our men and women in blue who are stretched to their very limits right now. And so that's why you see those folks out there, and we're grateful to them.
Hey, Mel, can I do a real quick diversion
Sure.
from what we're doing here? Less than a
Sure.
minute.
Yeah.
I'd like to send a shout out. We talked about our ACOs, the ones that are working in the systems, really watching over these inmates. So I want to send a shout out to them. Thank you very, very much. They're working in some really stretched situations. I want to send a shout out to my brothers over on Maui in the Maui Correctional Facility, especially those that was fighting for their lives during the riot when the administration didn't want to throw in any help. And they know who I am talking about because I have been on numerous calls. I also like to send a shout out to my daughter, who's a supervisor at Old Triple C. Why she got into that profession, I do not know. But as a dad, I just say, baby, you go for it. And I know you can protect yourself. And lastly, I'd like to send a shout out to my nephew who's on a big island in Kulani prison. And he's a big boy, and he does well up there. So kudos to all of the men and women in the corrections. It's really you're watching some that, in my estimation, just cannot be rehabilitated, but hey, they got rights too. So, thank you for keeping a cool head and all of that. So thank you, Mel. I just wanted to give a shout out to them.
You're welcome. I mean, there's so many heroes in all of this. It's so many heroes in all of this thing. And I remember the hurricane. I was in the police department, so was you, Charlie. You were there, and it was horrible. I mean, it's very little sleep. You work very long hours. You get criticized for everything you do. Our officers on the checkpoints. I mean, I read the comments. Most of them positive, but there's some people out there that do not appreciate what our men and women in the police department is doing out there, and they're doing it under the direction of of the mayor's orders and the direction of the chief. And I can honestly tell you, man, they would much rather be home or teleworking if they could, being with their families, and they can't. And so it's just there's so many of the doctors and the nurses, but our police. I just get frustrated when they get criticized because they're not out there because they want to be in the hot sun, asking you where you're going or where you came from. So again, I know what it's like. I had a good job in a hurricane. I was on the looting detail, so I just caught people that were stealing. That was fun. But what these guys are doing today, the threats of getting the virus from all these people, you have no idea who they are. And so much mahalos out to the police department as well.
Yeah, Mel,
All
and if I
right.
can jump in there real quick. Yeah, there are a lot of unsung heroes in this situation. And just when I think about my sister is a respiratory therapist at a major hospital in Washington, D.C. So she is on the front lines of this battle. My brother's partner, she's an ER nurse in a hospital outside of Boston, Massachusetts. My stepmom is currently recovering from COVID-19 in Pennsylvania, along with my dad, who's been sick as a dog for weeks. So, this virus is scary, and it pisses me off when I see these conspiracy theories on Facebook about how, this is just the flu, or this is, and Charlie, I know this virus has hit your family as well, and my condolences to you. I can't even imagine.
Thank you.
But take this seriously, folks. This is not something to sneeze at. This is not the flu. This is not the cold. This is not something that's going to go away when the weather gets warmer. And appreciate the people who are out there, the doctors and the nurses, and everybody who is working so hard to keep our community safe at this point.
And if you folks don't know, Justin also, both his stepmom and his dad are in Pennsylvania. Both of them have the COVID virus. So we know it's personal to you, Charlie, as well. So prayers go out to your parents as well, Justin. I know you know it's just a tough thing, and just prayers to you, and you know hopefully they get better. This is a bad
We are,
thing.
and they're both on the mend. They're both healing. But man, let me tell you, this threw them for a loop. It's been weeks. I mean, they could not sleep laying down. They had to sleep sitting up in a chair. I mean, for a prolonged period of time. So, yeah, this one's for real, folks.
All right. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. So I just want to, a couple of things. The mayor came out today and as I stated earlier in the show before Justin came on, TVRs, bed and breakfasts, all of these transit accommodation units or transit vacation rentals are going to be banned starting April 10th at 11:59 p.m. So April 11th. Everyone that's in there that is on an existing reservation will be allowed to finish out their reservation. No extensions will be allowed. Now, I understand, you know, the enforcement is going to be a problem. I know a lot of the questions are about how we're going to enforce. Justin, I don't know if you can answer those questions, but I guess the better or the better question is, what are the plans on prosecuting these people? Are we going to have an aggressive approach
Oh
to
yeah,
the prosecution?
if you're out there breaking this quarantine, if you're out there breaking the curfew, we're coming after you. Make no mistake about that. We're all sacrificing for the community right now, and so if our families are going to sacrifice, we expect folks out there to do their part. And if you break this quarantine and you're being stupid and you're breaking the law during this time when you know that people's lives are at risk, and especially our most vulnerable community members are our kupuna, kids, you know, people with compromised immune systems, cancer patients, people like that. If you're gonna endanger them just so you can do whatever, then yeah, you're gonna be looking at jail time. There's no question about it. It might be jail time once the pandemic passes, but I don't think that's going to make it that much more pleasant for you. So my advice, my strong advice, is to stay home.
There's a lot of questions coming in about what about the timeshare. I think there's and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, there's a real clear line. You have a hotel, you have a condo, you have a motel. The transit vacation rentals, I believe the mayor is talking about, are those homes that have been converted to visitor accommodations. Are you aware of what the clear definition will be if it's a timeshare of any of our timeshare resorts? Are they considered a transit vacation rental, or is that not?
I don't think that I'm not a land use guy, but I worked in the county attorney's office for a few years. TDRs, I believe, are self-contained residential units. They may have multiple units, I think, within the structure, but I don't think it's the same as a timeshare. Could be wrong about that, but I can say that whether or not the timeshares are banned by the scope of this order, I know that they are, pretty empty and getting emptier by the day. So, if it looks like it's an issue that the mayor has to address, then that's within his discretion. I support and applaud his action against the TVRs. I know it's going to hurt a small percentage of the TVRs who are owned by local families, and I am very sorry for their suffering because I know times are tough for everybody. I'm very grateful to still be working right now. I know this is going to hit a lot of people hard, but we have to do everything we can to ratchet down the number of people coming into the island for whatever reason, so that it's only, healthcare workers and other emergency personnel, and that's it. We do not want to be doing anything that is going to encourage or allow tourists to be coming to the island for the next 3 to 6 months. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to accept, but we don't want to die.
Hey, Justin, there's been talk. Mel and I have talked about this before. There's been a lot of witnessing of private jets coming in, being picked up from the airport and heading straight out without going through the declaration. Now, I don't know how that works, but that's what my understanding is. And I just received a text right now on the west side. There's a group of clusters of vacation rentals right along the highway, right as you enter Kekaha. When this started, the lights were off. But these folks who I'm getting a text from is saying that when they do their nightly exercise, they go back now, they see 2-3 lights on, and they can see couples in there that wasn't there before.
Okay, so, well, if they came here after March 26th, then hopefully they are observing the 14-day quarantine. And if citizens see any of those people breaking the quarantine, then I would suggest that they call Kauai Police Department. Okay. If they arrived here before the 11th, then they're going to be allowed to finish out their stay. But after the 11th, if they see new people coming into those TDRs, I would ask that they report them to the mayor's office and to the Kauai Police Department immediately. And Mel knows this, but we're taking the violations very seriously. And when we receive word of them, we will follow up and we will enforce. And frankly, we'll get the job done.
Okay, because right now I'm shooting a text back to this person because from what I'm reading here, the person just appeared. I mean, a couple just appeared, and earlier today they were seen out and about, and they have like a rental jeep leaving the area. So it doesn't, it's hard to tell. They could have been up north, and they've been on the island before and just changed their location. But is there some mechanism that if someone's just call, somebody would just go out and check anyway? Is there a mechanism for that to happen? Is that the 241-1711 number, or how would you handle that?
I think the administrative line, obviously don't tie up 911 dispatchers with this, but call the Kauai Police Department's admin line at 241-1711 and let them know what you've observed. If you've got a cell phone handy, take it out and snap a picture of the visitor, snap a picture of their vehicle, get the license plate if you can, because those are all things we can track. And okay. If people are flying here and breaking quarantine, I did hear about that one private jet, the Gulfstream, that flew in here last week. The state has as we've discussed, as you guys have discussed on here a lot, the state has pretty limited authority about keeping flights from coming into the island. So that's something that has to be done at the federal level. Obviously, I am disturbed when I see private jets flying in here and people strolling onto the tarmac and getting in a Yukon and driving up to Hanalei or whatever. But the state and county is very limited in terms of what we can do. I know the police department had a checkpoint set up at the airport today at the airport intersection on Hokini Road and Kuli Highway, and I applaud them for doing that. I suspect we'll see more checkpoints at that airport intersection. But yeah, even if we have 17 visitors a day coming to the island, which I think I saw the other day, we had 17 visitors come. That's 17 too many. That's 17 opportunities for transmission. That's 17 opportunities for them to each transmit it to 2.5 other people who are then going to go give it to 2.5 other people. It's not acceptable. So.
Okay. Well, for those of you that are watching, and like Mel said earlier, the comments that are coming through, and this is for those who are watching, the comments are coming through. You're able to see those comments as well. And pretty sure, I saw the police chief was on the list of watching tonight, and he's been seeing some of these comments. So just keep it coming through. We might not get to all of them tonight, but I know somebody in authoritative place might pique the interest and take a look at it and might respond to it. So
Yeah, and
don't stop bringing it in.
Understand, folks, the mayor and Mel and myself and Charlie and the police chief, right now we are all getting absolutely bombarded with messages on a daily basis. And I know that we're all grateful for that, because that means you trust us to address your problems. And that means a lot to me personally. And, if I ever don't get right back to you, don't be shy about sending me a reminder and saying, hey, I don't know if you saw this, because if we're not friends on Facebook, the message might go into another inbox and I might not see it right away, or Mel might not see it right away. But we do our best to make sure that by the time we go to bed at night, we've responded to all the messages that we get. And if it's something we can follow up on, and we say we're going to follow up on it, and you don't hear back from us, remind us, because we've all got a lot going on right now, and we're trying our best to not have any of this stuff fall through the cracks.
I'll just say that, as Justin said, we're bombarded. You can, many of you are sending me multiple messages a day. I appreciate that. I gotta again shout out to Sarah Blaine at the EOC and Sue Canojo at the Visitors Bureau. We had a complaint about a property. I'm not going to mention any names, that had some issues. They didn't want to acknowledge or comply with the mayor's order to close the common areas of their property, and notified Sarah at the EOC. They sent out the police officers on a couple of occasions. I'll just say this: it escalated to the point where attorneys got involved, and they shut the pool down yesterday. They shut the pool down. One of the guests got upset at the complaining witness, or the person that resides in this property, permanent resident, and this morning chased this guy around with a hammer. The visitor chased this victim around with a hammer, called KPD. KPD responded immediately, arrested the individual, 71-year-old visitor, in our cell block, $5,000 bail. They are taking these things seriously. But as Justin said, or someone may have been Charlie, these people may come from one property to another. We cannot assume that when they get to a property that's next to your house, that it's a new arrival. It could be someone that has changed properties. But come the 11th of April, and this is, I'm going to clarify this tomorrow with Sarah, but if that property is zoned as a vacation rental, pays their taxes as a vacation rental, I would assume that's what the county is going to be using. A resort, if you're classified, your classification is a resort, then you're not a vacation rental. If you're a timeshare resort, you would be a resort. Those that are not in a visitor destination area, those that are or in a visitor destination area, but you're classified as a vacation rental based on the county's tax code, you will not be able. I don't care if you move from one property to the next. According to the mayor's rule, no bookings will be extended. Now, that's going to be very hard to enforce, but if you have information, if you work at one of these properties, you may work at one of these properties. I promise you, I will leave you anonymous. I just need to know. And we will make sure we get the guys out there. And as we heard from Justin, he will prosecute these violations to the fullest extent. The other thing I want to touch on is the Crime Stoppers has an app. It's go to your phone, go to your app store, whether it's an iPhone or a Google or whatever it is, and it's called P as in Paul, P3 Tips, Tips, P3 Tips. Download the app. It's free. Register. There's a when you submit your tip, you can submit your tip of whatever it is. It doesn't have to be COVID related. It could be whatever you want it, whatever it is. When you submit your tip, on the bottom of that form, there's a place you can attach a photo. You can take a photo with your camera and you can submit the photo. If it's a drug case, it goes straight to Vice. If it's a property crime, it goes straight to the property detectives. We utilize the Crime Stoppers app as much as you possibly can. P3 Tips on your app store and get it downloaded and use it. really, really use that thing. Now is the best time to use it. I know we are running out of time. Justin, any closing comments before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, just want to give a shout out to Crime Stoppers, folks on the board, Ron Wiley, Sue Kanoho. Thanks for all that you do for our island. I can't even imagine what's going on in your mind right now. I've got a small inkling, but I probably can't appreciate the full scope of it. Charlie, make sure you go give Stephanie a big hug for me tonight, and
I will.
go give Patsy a hug, because I'm not going to be able to give anyone a hug for quite a while here. So, but yeah, we'll just keep on keeping on. That's what we do.
Well, again, thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure, man. You know, we try to bring interesting guests. We had, you know, 300 people on tonight. This thing will be seen by a lot of people, but that's the key. We want to inform and educate. Justin, is it okay if I give out your prosecutor email? Your prosecutor?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Prosecutor at Kauai.gov. Prosecutor at Kauai.gov. Obviously, that goes to Justin's office. Probably end up coming to me.
Yeah, you can also use MF Raposo at Kauai.gov. No problem there. Just go direct to the source. No worries.
Listen, I'm in this for the long haul. You know, I want to see us all get out of this without anybody dying. That's my mission. That's my focus. And we're gonna do whatever we can. And that's what our job is. And you know, we'll continue this broadcast every single night. Tomorrow night, we will have Kalani Vieira, Ocean Safety Bureau's chief. He's going to be talking about the problems he's seeing and the importance of us staying at home. Yeah, you can go to the beach, but go to the beach, get your exercise, and go home. You got to do that. And then on Friday night, you ready for this, Justin?
I'm ready.
Friday night, 7 p.m., we will have Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as our guest. That she's going to give us updates on what's going on at the federal level, and we'll give her the floor. She'll be able to say whatever she wants, but Tulsi will be here Friday night at 7 p.m. and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring interesting people that can share their expertise. And you know, we may not all agree, we may not all agree, but we're all in this together, and let's respect each other's opinions and let's move forward. Charles.
Yes. Well, I'd like to say thank you, first of all, Justin. Give your wife a big hug for me and Steph. We miss you folks, but mostly for coming on tonight and just getting the message out there, because there's some confusion and it's understandable. But I hope those who've been watching tonight kind of get an understanding. There's a lot of moving parts, and you know, I wish if everything was made in heaven that we can just do it one crack by pressing a button, it'll happen, but it doesn't. And so I just appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I tell you, you know, you got the best of Charlie Iona tonight. I didn't go. I mean, my medication is working real well. I'm even healed right now.
Charlie, I'm really glad to hear that. And you know, anytime you guys want me to come back on the Mel and Charlie show, you know, just you know how to get a hold of me.
Thank you.
Charles, we're getting.
Yes.
Are you frozen? You cannot be frozen, Charlie.
No, I'm not.
Okay, you're frozen on my screen.
I can see him.
You're
he
frozen
moving?
on your screen.
Okay.
You're frozen.
Everybody's asking for the Flatten the Curve song. I can't believe it. More than one person has asked us for the flattening. I don't know. Justin hasn't seen this because he's never stayed on long enough. But you ready, Charles?
No, not yet. I'm getting my oversized ukulele. This is the I'll show you. This is not a guitar. It's a oversized ukulele from this is a present that was given to me. Here we go. This is an oversized ukulele from Bernard Cavallo.
Justin, we do this every night. You know, we did this as a joke, just to have some fun, and then people were asking, like, you know, how come you didn't do your flattening? See, Charlie, why don't you tell the story? Tell the reason why.
The reason why, Justin, we've been pounding the message so that the people of Kauai and whoever's watching that it's an attempt to flatten the curve. And if they don't want to comply, and we can't flatten the curve that way, then we're gonna flatten your ears by playing a special flat song. Are you
I'm
ready?
getting good.
I've
I'm
never
actually-
heard Mel Raposo play music before, and I
you
just
gonna-
can only imagine what
you're
this is
gonna-
going to be
look at-
like.
look at-
So let's hear it.
Okay,
Well,
ready,
Justin.
Charles.
No, wait, I need to tell Justin, he's never heard you before. And after tonight, you may never want to hear him again, Justin.
I'm looking at the numbers, Charlie. I expected the numbers to drop. It's growing. Our viewers
Okay.
are growing.
You ready? You
I'm
ready?
ready, buddy. I'm ready.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Take care, folks. Have a good
All
night.
right,
and
everybody.
aloha.
Thank you. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Join us. We love you guys. Take care. God bless everybody. Aloha.
Stay safe.